applåd när de kliver ner där. Känner du igen henne?
Float around, lost and found. It's a beautiful sound.
Och han var en tjuvjägare i Stockholm.
And this is the only one, and it's yours.
For Americans, our heritage in general is very important because all of us are immigrants. So everyone in the States would like to know where their family came from. So my grandmother became very interested in our genealogy, my father's mother. And so years ago, she decided to trace our family, and she found that our grandfather, his family went back to the Swedish colony. And so all of a sudden we had a new culture to understand and to be a part of and to celebrate. So it's meant that we've gotten to have a lot more interesting things to do in our life, including going to Old Swedish Church, being part of the Lucia celebrations, being part of the celebrating the Kalmar Nickel landing, understanding what it might have been like for our ancestors to be in the States. That's the most fascinating thing. What was life like in the 1600s in the colonies versus how it is now? I think I was in elementary school, and my parents and grandparents were celebrating maybe it was the 350th anniversary of the landing of the Kalmar Nickel, and I remember that Ann Margaret came and the King and Queen came, and it was very important to them. And I also had a woman who got me started singing when I was 9, and her name was Evelyn Swenson. So she was also Swedish, and she was part of all of these celebrations and sang at a lot of the Swedish ceremonies, and she got me involved in doing Lucia as well. It's the most important heritage in our family that we've understood. We do have German ancestry, and we do have English ancestry, so our ancestors also go back to the Mayflower, but for some reason it's much more important to us to celebrate being Swedish than it is for us to celebrate our English or German. I'm not sure why, but being Swedish has this allure, and we care a lot about it. When I came to Sweden, I came from New York, and I was working with a composer there who'd worked in Sweden before, and she said, "You're going to find so much peace in Sweden." And I couldn't even imagine that, because I lived in New York, and it's never peaceful in New York City. It's always stressful, it's always loud, there's always something happening. And so when I moved to Sweden, all of a sudden I experienced this very deep feeling of peace and calm and letting things be. And that allowed me to calm down and get in touch with what was inside of me instead of having so much energy outside of myself. So that deep, genuine love of life and being part of nature and letting life unfold as it does, and using your energy as it can be used and not overdoing it. I think that's a part of Swedish culture that sunk in. So if you're going to have a coffee, sit and have a coffee together and talk. Don't take your coffee in a plastic or a paper mug and walk as fast as you can to the next thing with your coffee. It's to experience things instead of accomplish things. As artists, we don't ever know if anybody is understanding what we do or not. It's hard to know if you're reaching anybody. So when this award happened, it was actually at a part of my life where I was feeling a lot of doubt about the value of what I was doing, because I had been surrounded by some people who felt that I should focus more on making as much money as I possibly could and not as much on what I love to do. And so it was a huge lift for me in that I realized that somebody recognized the value of what I was doing, and it wasn't just me by myself making music that nobody really cared about, or even the fact that I was bringing Swedish culture back to the States and vice versa, because I felt that I was so impressed with the solidarity in Sweden and the feeling of community and taking care of each other that I was trying to tell everybody in the States how important it was. And some people wanted to hear me and some people didn't. So it's just nice to know that you're being heard and that you are part of a legacy, and a legacy that many, many people care about. That made me feel much more valued and included, and to know the Vasa Order is still doing that today because it is so valuable. It makes me feel like I'm in the right river. I haven't done nearly as much as many of the people on the list, including going to the moon or having an incredibly long acting and singing career. I think the most important thing is that it brings me an understanding of the value of knowing where you're from and honoring that and celebrating it and doing it with people who feel the same way, both in the United States and in Sweden, and that I can continue to live life as part of both worlds, because it really is one world. So in the future I hope it won't feel so far away, because sometimes it feels very far away when you're either in the States missing Sweden or in Sweden missing the States. But I think also it gives me some support and recognition to be able to continue to sing and write, and that perhaps more people would like to hear the music as I keep doing that. Oh, we've had such a great week. So when we arrived, we had a very nice, just a getting to know everybody dinner, which was lovely. And then we took the Gothenburg, the East India Company's Gothenburg boat across Lake Värmeland, and that was beautiful. And we had very nice weather, and we were very well hosted by everyone on the boat. And it was also incredible to see all of the boats who followed us into the harbor. I especially got lucky because I was invited to do an interview in the officers' dining room. So I had a view out of all of the paned glass of the boats following us in. Everything from yachts to motorboats to people's very small dinghy boats with a tiny outboard motor. Everybody was following us in, and that was quite something. And then when we arrived, to see how many people were there. So we came in and did that, and I played a song for the public, which was wonderful. Then we had, the next day, we went to the Lars Lerin Museum, which was absolutely mind-blowing. I think that he has an incredible vision of the world, and you see it on his watercolors. So we were quite taken with Lars Lerin's museum. Then we had Gunhilde Carling and Very Good Company. And the next day, I had a concert at the harbor for everybody who was there to see the Gothenburg, which was exciting, not only to have a concert, but also the view I had was pretty incredible. It was of the boat and then of all the clouds and over Lake Värmeland. So for me, I got a great view while I played. And then we had a lovely dinner that night with people who were working to set up the arrangements at the harbor and also for the boat. And we all went out and played darts after dinner, after we had sung Schnapsvisor, and it was super fun. And then the next day, we went to Rottneros on Friday and saw the beautiful park, and we saw the monument to the Great Migration from Sweden to the States. And we had a lovely tea on the veranda with our host, I guess his name was Ivan Persson or Paulson, whose family owns Rottneros. And then we saw a beautiful play with music and dancing and costumes, and it was about a fiddle player who came from a Finnish family who lived in the most rural areas of Sweden, and all of the mythology that surrounded it. That was quite something as well. Then we had a gorgeous luncheon yesterday out near where John Eriksson was born, and they had set up the whole restaurant to be like somebody's house, maybe from another century, from the previous century, so that was really special. Then we went to Jan Eriksson's grave site and honored his grave and had some very nice speeches by the mayor of Filipstad and by the U.S. Embassy and by the Vasa Order, by Connie Gurun, and then we're able to see the military band play, and I also sang a few songs after laying a wreath on John Eriksson's grave. And then yesterday evening we had a lovely dinner at the Swedish Migration Center and started with a drink in the garden, and I was able to play a few songs for all of the Vasa Order's guests and have some wonderful friends there, like my friend Emma. And then we had a very nice evening of singing and speeches, and I was given the award, which was beautiful, and some beautiful candlesticks as well from Orrefors. And then I was able to say a few words. And then we had a tour of the governor of Värmeland's quarters, which was just upstairs, which was also beautiful with lots of artwork, and heard stories about the king and about the prince. And it just couldn't have been more full of the greatest of Värmeland and incredible people and artists and life, and how people have been in this area for many, many generations. We've been spoiled.
A small